All right. So you are receiving this email because you are one of the people selected to kind of test out of the first 4 weeks of class, since it's pretty rudimentary. It can be pretty basic. It can get kind of repetitive. It's things that other students might take the full 2.5 to 3 hours to do. You might get done really quickly. These are things that you might already have examples of, and they might be things that you don't have examples of, but you could turn out pretty quickly. And then if you can show me that you understand those skills already and will be able to execute them in the classes, further more involved exercises after from like week 5 going on, then you will just plan on coming back by September 25th. Obviously, you can come to class as much as you want, but I just want to prevent any kind of, stasis. So mass drawing, I will show you some examples of that. This is basically drawing in a way, this is like a little bit more sketchy than I would love. This I feel like is a slightly better, more finished, more polished example. This is way more gestural. It's just capturing the mass of the object, versus drawing something that with a heavy outline. So if you see this foot, for example, that has a heavy outline. We're trying to break away from those kinds of drawings and get into drawing without outlines. It's a pretty good example too. Even this is a pretty hard and heavy outline. So we'll be doing a lot of practices in class trying to break people from the habit. And a lot of those drawings will mostly just look like this, or even some of the simple, quicker sketches will look something like that. These are like good, but still really dark, still have like pretty big, heavy outlines. So what we're aiming for is if you can do a still life drawing where you've executed examples that you know how to draw a composition of objects that doesn't have any kind of hard outline. So that would be mass drawing, focusing on just drawing the mass. The next one was gesture drawing. So you can draw people, you can use models in real life, or you can use images off of the internet, that's fine. But you're trying to basically do these kind of scribbled quick drawings, where you're capturing the energetic flow of movement with your pencil. Let me see if I can find some good gesture examples. These are all right. These are a little bit more cartoony than I would like. This is a really good one, right? So giving yourself like 30 seconds to draw something intricate by really quickly moving your pencil in the direction, in the flow of whatever that object is. So if you have any examples of this, you can also watch tutorials for how to do it. I have some on my YouTube site. I'll share those in the link, in the email. And then thumbnail sketches. So demonstrating good composition, showing that you know how to like set up a still life, how to choose what it is that you want to draw. So I will pull up some examples of what would be bad composition and what would be good composition. So you can use a viewfinder to create a way of like a window, so you can look at the objects in front of you when you're setting up a still life, right? So accumulating a few different objects that are interesting to look at, interesting to draw, and then determining where you're going to start your drawing. So you can set it up like this is someone who just shoved their viewfinder into a styrofoam cup and just put that in front of them so that they could frame what they were about to draw. You can use a viewfinder that way, or you can just kind of, take a look at it and draw thumbnail sketches. Viewfinders are good because they can behave like a grid. You can see on this one, it has dividing lines in it. We probably will use viewfinders later on in the semester when we go into landscape drawing. So if you want to make one now, you can. But like this little icon shows somebody using their hands to just kind of frame things and see like what's going to make an actual good composition. And then you can include thumbnail sketches at the bottom or the top of your drawing so that you can see the different angles that you might have tried drawing it. It's a way of kind of doing like a rough draft drawing before you dive right in. But it's also really useful for framing the composition. It can show you like how your paper should be oriented. Should it be vertical? Should it be horizontal? And where are you going to position your focal points or your main objects? So that way you don't make some really common mistakes that people make when they're setting up a composition. So some examples of good composition. We can see the object is relatively well centered. There's a foreground and some background visible. You don't always have to fully center your objects, but just to have them in space in a way that like feels appropriate and fitting. Some examples where they're positioned more randomly, but they all fit nicely within the frame, right? Nothing is kind of like bleeding over the edge or being smushed toward the top too much. Some of the pieces are overlapping. There's some Renaissance angles, right? When you make a triangle, all the objects are kind of flowing into each other in a nice triangle. Sometimes it's nice to do it as a circle. A close-up is fine, or one where the cast shadows are taking up as much space in the composition as your objects. Those are some examples of good composition. So if you have any drawings that you've made with still life objects that do represent that or reflect that skill level, show them. Otherwise, draw one of your own. Something to avoid is like weak composition. Just when your objects are like haphazardly positioned, right? You want them to be either nicely centered or positioned in a way that feels like they're being well framed. This is obviously not well framed. All the action is happening in the top quarter. Everything else is just empty. So it's needs a little bit more balance. As an example, it is balanced, but everything is just centered. There's only one object. He's facing forward. It's not really giving us an interesting angle or a different perspective. Also, there's not very much breathing room around it. Okay, so that's for giving good composition, showing an example of that. So some sketch that shows good composition with thumbnail sketches. And then even value and realistic gradation. So something that shows that you know how to shade in a way that looks believable. I can show an example of that. So we're looking at this last fifth bubble right here. Blending and smudging is a technique for creating believable value that looks pretty photorealistic. So if you have any drawings that show, believable imagery, something like this is really well shaded, right? The value looks believable. These are all really good examples. Something like this, I would say, is a pretty good example too, because everything is shown where it's supposed to be. So just showing me what level you're at as far as putting value down. This is a good example of something that doesn't have any value, right? It's just kind of a contour line drawing. There's no real shading. This kind of shading is really basic, so it's not showing any kind of indication of an actual understanding of how to create value. Then there's texture. So demonstrating that you know how to create value using these different texture techniques. So cross hatching, which is this one, right? They go crossed like a screen or like a net. So you're hatching in one direction and then hatching in another direction. That's cross hatching. This is just regular hatching. This is scumbling, and this is stippling. So showing that you can recreate a form. Our students will be using a photograph, recreating the photograph using these 5 different techniques. If you want, if you have an example of that, would be awesome. If not, you can just show that you know how to recreate these basic spheres. And then perspective drawing. So if you have any practice with perspective, turn it in. I'm having students do a town and then a block letter version of their name. So if you have any examples, maybe you've done like a sketchbook drawing of like your bedroom where everything's drawn in perspective, just something that illustrates that you understand the logic behind that, then you are good to go. So look over this list, look over this video, email me or just text me. Sorry, not text me. Just email me if you have any questions about this between now and Monday. See what you can dig up between now and Monday, and we'll talk on Monday over Zoom. I'm going to attach a link to that Zoom in this email as well. So once you know what time you want to meet, I'm free in the morning before 12. All right, thanks.